Hello, Savannah. Hello, Savannah, and hello to ATR. Listen, it is spring break, y'all. Spring break. I want to say happy Passover and Palm Sunday to everyone. As we approach Easter celebrations, we know we are also in the midst of our Jewish holiday as well. So we want to have everyone continuously embrace their faith. And as we lean on our faith, in these very turbulent times. It is my hope that we will get through, go through, but most of all, we will grow through. We have a good show for you tonight. I'm so excited because this is a mission that's near and dear to my heart. As you all know, I have worked on the front lines of community and social services in Savannah for nearly 3 decades. And in that work, from working with victims of domestic violence, families with children who are homeless, working with our youth who are members of gangs and gun violence, to working with senior citizens who are nutrition insecure. And my last stint was working with victims of rape and child molestation. That work left a lasting impression on me. And I think it's a part of the most tireless efforts that I put forth with regard to mission work in Savannah. And I could not have done it without the intrepid spirit of so many staffers and volunteers and all of that work. So I want to say thank you. Now, here in our age, time, space, and place, we do a lot by way of attaching missions and movements to months. And so as we approach April, we will be approaching what's commonly known as SAM, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And that's a time when many organizations throughout the nation are expressing what their services are. They are doing a lot of fundraising, but most of all, they are doing a lot of outreach, education, and awareness. And that brings me to my first guest tonight, Miss Lindsey Grovenstein from Beyond the Bell. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, Miss Carter. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Now, I was thinking as I contacted you, I was like, when and how did Lindsey and I meet? And I am so convinced that many of the encounters I have had since being in elected office has nothing to do with what I want to do, but it has everything to do with what is supposed to happen and when it's supposed to happen. Now, we connected months ago on a common mission and decided that while we were interested in achieving the same goal, we could merge some of the things that on its face are different, but ultimately in our merging and collaborating and networking with others, we have come up with a program and a project that I was trying to get the city to adopt many years ago upon my arrival at the Rape Crisis Center. And that was a program where we would essentially help our community become more educated, increase awareness, but also get the city to connect with organizations who advocate for responsible alcohol consumption. And now we know that we have a very festive city. I love Savannah and I love all of the fun she has to offer. We also have a very wet city, a very wet city. People love to drink here in Savannah. And we do not want to be prudes and discourage people from engaging in whatever libations and festivities they will. But what we want to recognize is the fact that we live in a community that is not minus or void some of the dynamics that come along with overconsumption or irresponsibility in consuming alcohol. And so Beyond the Bell is the organization that you work for. And Beyond the Bell's mission is to use tools and data and evidence-based research to basically help communities understand various strategies they can incorporate when it comes to preventing certain episodes. Particularly Beyond the Bell is more focused on underage drinking. Now, when we came together, I was like, Lindsey, well, I've been trying to push an alcohol awareness program to help acknowledge that alcohol plays a pervasive role in the commission and facilitation of sexual violence. In fact, during my stint at the Rape Crisis Center, at the end of every given year, nearly 60% plus of our rape cases were basically you could detect a connection with alcohol consumption by one or both parties. And that was alarming to me. It was alarming to me. And we also noted that a lot of those connections were attached to our local bars, particularly those within our downtown corridors. And more controversial is the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of tourists, people who came to Savannah, enjoyed the festivities that she has to offer, were finding themselves in compromising situations. And unfortunately, rape kits became souvenirs of sorts. And it was very, very depressing. And it was primarily because of individuals who take advantage of people when they're in a vulnerable state. And I want folks to know that rape basically is relegated to situations where an individual is intoxicated. If a female is intoxicated, she cannot give consent. And that's by way of Georgia state statute. And so we can argue that all day long. But the side of the law that you want to be on is recognizing that you were able to establish consent from a person who was lucid. And then, Lindsey, we started talking a little bit more, and we learned that you are a partner with Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah.
So I thought we are all over the place here. And I remember actually saying that when we were on our Zoom call. And I remember it was very early in the whole COVID pandemic because it kind of slowed a lot of the progress we were able to make.
I remember we met for the first time to talk about this before the shutdown. It was like right before the shutdown. And I remember we talked about it and then it was shut down. And then throughout this, we really pushed it. So it's been about a year of us planning to get to this point. So yeah, all the moving parts coming together.
Yeah, and we've gone through 2 city managers, and I thought it was going to get lost in the shuffle, but fortunately,
we pushed.
Yeah. So, and I want to say thanks to our staff who worked behind the scenes, Mr. Zoller and Mr. Shiraus, in helping us to get to this place, and we could not have done that without their support as well. And so now we have arrived at a place where we were successful in merging the mission and goals of 3 elements: underage drinking, focusing on incorporating those practices where we are averting sexual violence, as well as drunk driving. Tell us what we've done, and then we have some posters we want to share, and we want to use this platform tonight as an opportunity to let bar and liquor serving establishments know that this is a campaign that we are currently launching through the City of Savannah, and we want you to contact us. My information is on the City of Savannah website via text, via cell phone, or email. So please send us your information if you're interested in having these posters and having Lindsey stop by and give some information. Lindsey, you take it from here.
Woo! Oh, there's just so much to talk about too, really. And thank you so much, Ms. Carter, for getting us to this point. You've really pushed it, and it's been great. Oh goodness. So yeah, and what Ms. Carter was saying, you know, she came together. She's been pushing this to reduce sexual assault. Beyond the Bell, we work to prevent underage alcohol. We also focus on marijuana and tobacco and just drug use in general. Of course, we partner with MAD. So Beyond the Bell, we have a coalition called the Savannah Prevention Coalition. And so really what the prevention is about is if we can promote protective factors, if we can promote healthy decisions, if we can promote interventions, then we can reduce all of the risky behaviors. So we can do it all if we just try to promote. We can prevent so much. And that's what I love about this work, is that we have so many different players, the MAD, sexual assault, underage drinking, but we also work with Youth Intercept and our Savannah Prevention Coalition, and they work with youth. And so also it's like crime violence, trying to prevent gang violence. We can do all of this if we, you know, kind of just start at the basics. So we're just trying to push prevention. And like Ms. Carter said, we are not a prohibition. We're not trying to push. We don't want you to drink. We just want the right people to drink in the right ways. And I used to be a bartender. I used to be a server. I understand it is the moneymaker here. We want to continue to make money, but we can do that in a safe and responsible manner as well. We don't have to keep over serving to the point of intoxication. So let me see. So we got these posters out pre-St. Patrick's Day. We were able, the coalition, we went to downtown and we distributed these posters to over 50 establishments, and they took it before St. Patrick's Day. And I will just tell you the businesses that we were able to speak to, everybody was very supportive. They were supportive of us, and they were glad to receive the support. Because often, so over that same holiday weekend, the ABC unit, the Alcohol Beverage Compliance Unit, they went out and did several stings, and several businesses did fail. They were selling to underage, undercover people, or they were not up to date on their required alcohol awareness training, which we're also trying to promote.
Now, Lindsey, let me ask you a quick question there. So I sometimes get carded and I sometimes don't. When I don't get carded, I'm like, oh, good. I must not look my age. But tell me this, how, because I know that we had a lot of citations pre and post St. Patrick's Day holiday, and the numbers for citations for underage drinking is actually increasing in Savannah. So tell us, what is the rule? What is the rule when it comes to who is ID'd and how they are ID'd? Like, so I'm over the age of 21, right?
Yeah.
But a person just assumes that I'm having a bad day and I'm looking 50 and they sell me alcohol. Did they have to ask me for an ID? Would that be a violation if I'm over the age of 21?
Yes, you have to. You have to ask everybody. There's a card every person every time, and this actually comes up in the servers. You know, there are older people, you know, in their 50s. They'll sometimes get mad at you if you ask for a card. People don't like being ID'd, but the server has to. It's Georgia law.
I like being ID'd, by the way.
Yeah, and you know, most people they like it. So for a server, just some people. And it's crazy. Some people like being carded, some people don't, but you have to every time. And this is what, you know, serving alcohol, you guys have said it before in the council, it is a privilege, it's not a right. And the servers will know this. There's dram shop laws here in Georgia, as well as negligent laws here in Georgia. So bar owners and servers both are held responsible for anything that happens. So if someone overserves somebody at their bar, and if they leave, get in their car and get in an accident, the server is held liable, the owner is held liable. They can shut down your bar because of that. So we're really trying to support business owners to prevent not only everything we just talked about, but also to prevent legal issues within their bar. I think ultimately, if we can push safe, proactive practices, we'll make more money in the end too, because I think the patrons coming in, the tourists, like I said, I used to be a bartender. People would ask me, well, where's somewhere safe? Is it safe around here? That's the question I always got. So, like, people want a safe time. We can push that more. And it's all about building a network, though. I think a lot of the times we put a lot of pressure on the business owners. There's so much. They have to do their safety plan, and not to mention the day-to-day operation of running a business like a restaurant. What can we do to support? So that's why I love this private-public partnership we have, that different entities and stakeholders can come together and build this type of network. So that, you know, we just did these PSA posters, but this is just the first step of this campaign that we hope to sustain, where we want to just raise awareness about different issues. We want to reiterate the alcohol awareness training that they have to. So servers have to receive training, and I could talk so much about this, obviously. Servers have to receive training once every 2 years. But my colleague, he just got 200 over St. Patrick's Day of servers flooding to get trained because ABC did an enforcement. Those people should have been trained way before they did stings. And the enforcement.
Just give me a caption of maybe 3 highlights that a person would go through in training? Like, what are like 3 things that they would get in training that would help foster the fact that these individuals are being compliant?
Yeah. And I'm actually a certified tips trainer. So we offer this training. Beyond the Bell wants to offer free training, by the way, for servers. So basically, you're learning intoxication rate factors. You're learning about blood alcohol content. You're learning about what a standard drink size is.
And we have a chart on that. Can you put the chart up, please? And then you can just kind of go through that for us as well, Lindsey.
Yes. And so really, they teach you behavioral cues. So you're looking at, as a server, you should be able to identify how drunk somebody is. So we all know when you start drinking a little bit, you loosen up. And at first you're just kind of having fun, but then, you lose coordination. You start slurring. When someone's stumbling, they're much drunker than someone who's just kind of loosened up a little bit. But there's also tolerance. So people who drink more often aren't going to show those signs, but their blood alcohol content is still the same. So, and it's tricky. It is tricky being a bartender and you have a full bar and everybody's at a different level and you're responsible for all of it. But there's also something in Georgia called negligence laws. And so you're supposed to keep a log of, hey, I served this person a drink. They got a little drink, or they got too drunk. I tried to cut them off. I gave them water. So if they do walk out of your bar and something happens, you're not held liable for that. But only if you keep a log. And most restaurants here do not keep a log of like their interventions. So basically the tips will teach you how to recognize, and then they teach you the actual interventions. And the interventions, and you know this from sexual assault intervention, it's just paying attention. It's just responding. It's just, getting, if someone's super drunk, but you see their friends, get their friends to help you out, give them water or call an Uber. Yeah, I could go on and on about this, obviously.
No, this is very important. And one of the things, I don't know if this was your experience, but I know when we rolled out safe bar initiatives when I was at the Rape Crisis Center, I was very fortunate to connect with a handful of bar and liquor serving establishments who are really, really excited to join in this effort, because they acknowledge that they did not realize, once we shared the statistics and the data, and I don't know if you have that handy, that little breakdown where we gave information to the bar and liquor serving establishments in terms of sexual violence, DUI, as well as drunk driving. So what we learned when connecting with these establishments, they actually stated, many of the bartenders said, I had no idea that simply doing my job played such a major role in whether or not these episodes could actually take place. They mentioned that they had become so desensitized over time that they didn't realize that they sort of lose the continuity of paying attention, as you stated, or they become more relaxed because of the regular customers, if you will. But we want you to go through those brief bullets that we sent to each of the establishments that we were looking to connect with, if you have that handy.
Yes, I am. My computer's a little slow. I just sent your engineer some alcohol-related time stats that you sent me from 2019, but let me pull up that cover letter.
And so what we just let me know when you get it up, and I'll just let our listeners know. We reached out to several bar and liquor serving establishments, not to say, shaking our finger at them, but essentially we want you to be a partner. And as much as Savannah is known as the place to party, we want our tourists and our visitors and our guests to know that this is a safe place to party. Having a headline where someone gets killed, raped, robbed in an establishment, coming from an establishment, is not the type of headline that makes for a community or city that people want to visit. And so that's a priority. But the ultimate priority is the fact that when faced on the other side of these situations, like sexual violence, realizing that rape changes the trajectory of a person's life. It is the worst crime, only second to homicide. A person works a lifetime to overcome that. And I want those of you who are under the sound of my voice, who may have experienced an episode of sexual violence while inebriated or intoxicated, I want you to know that that was not your fault. It was not okay, and it's not too late to get help. Support and help is available to you through crisis centers here in our city, as well as the National RAIN Association that reaches out to individuals as well. Additionally, we know that individuals get into accidents that sometimes ultimately result in that worse crime, vehicular homicide. So we want people to be mindful of that as well.
Wow. Yeah, I pulled up some, and this is some that you sent me from 2019. Our cover letter was more just some general, this bringing it home to Savannah. In Savannah in 2019, you can just assume some of these went up because 2020 actually for a fact. So in 2019, there were 649 DUIs. And that's just DUI. Sometimes they'll pull you over and you don't get the DUI. There were 89 citations to sales to minors in 2019 and 88 reports of public drunkenness. And so, of course, nationally, over 50% of sexual assault cases include alcohol consumption by the perpetrator, victim, or both. And over 10,000 people die nationally in drunk driving crashes. Also, on the DUI, I do know for a fact, Memorial Health, they have put out data that in 2020, motor vehicle crashes involving alcohol went up by 79%. So people are drinking and driving more, and we're seeing that.
And in this day and age, there's so many opportunities for people like Uber, Lyft, and just be with a responsible friend. Be with someone who is not planning to overindulge or consume that night. Both when it comes to prevention of sexual assault, and we want to say, someone once said that rapists are people. Rapists are not people. Rapists are predators. Rapists are punks, and they're just mean, nasty, ugly people who seek to take advantage of individuals who may be in those vulnerable states. And we never, ever want the survivor of such a vile act to point the blame at themselves. And I want you all to recognize that before a person, after experiencing sexual violence, before you judge them, they have already judged themselves. They've put out there that I shouldn't have been here. I shouldn't have worn this. I should not have overindulged. Rape is never the fault of the survivor or the victim. It's always the fault of the person who commits it. And so what we want to do, and that's what brings me to the next part of what I'm doing, Lindsey, we are now launching, for several years, I worked at the Rape Crisis Center on the front lines of providing advocacy, resources and services to individuals who were already in that situation by way of forensics evidence collection through a rape kit, working with law enforcement, as well as follow-up subsequent services to include counseling support. I now have the opportunity through a current business to provide additional prevention education. One of the toughest things challenges we had with regard to prevention education, we were fortunate to be able to get into our public schools with our good touch, bad touch, or body safety programs. But it was always really difficult to reach the teenagers and the athletes. For me, if you never have to deal with the situation, if we can now build and create a culture in our community where we are focused more on prevention, education, and awareness versus direct service, direct care, and that transcends
responding.
Yes,
because you're responding to it. Well, I know, and I was talking to my dad about this because prevention is hard to. I didn't mean to cut you off too.
No.
Prevention. It's hard to measure prevention. It's hard to measure something that you prevented from happening. So that's why people don't want to give out resources. You know, it's easier to say, well, we did a direct service and we served 50 kids. You know, it's hard for me to say, well, 50 kids didn't do drugs and alcohol because of our services. I mean, you can show that some over time, but over a long period of time, really. So I think sometimes the resources have been given more to reactive, and you know, we need it's the continuum of care, right? Prevention is on there, then treatment, and then you know, and then you're responding to it. But prevention has always kind of just not been the focus, because we're always focusing on the thing as it's happening. And I think that's what even the situation with the pandemic has shown us. You know, it was all about preventing, trying to prevent things from happening. And I was like, oh yeah, it just gave me a big old perspective on prevention even more.
And at the city level, one of the reasons I was so excited, I mean, I've never been one to be remotely interested in politics. I actually abhor politics and politicians. I just thought it was just like this mean, nasty world where people just play games, right, with people's lives. And being a part of the nonprofit continuum, where I raised, clamored, and begged for money for my mission, to keep the doors open, to keep the lights on, and to keep services pushed out to our populations, I thought, they raised all of this money for politics. What a waste. And so that's where my initial aversion to politics came. But once, after a certain set of circumstances that sort of forced me out of my job and forced me out of my career, I was flat on my back with nothing else to do in the small town of Savannah. It doesn't take much for you to get blackballed, right? And so I got up and decided that public service would be my next likely step. And who knew? Who knew? But you know, less than figuring out what my next step was, I was more excited that it's like, Kesha, go ahead, embrace it, because you've worked in excess of 2 decades from a reactionary standpoint, responding to an emergency, trying to meet a right now need, trying to fix a situation that was presented to you right there, whether it was homelessness and hunger, whether it was someone who needed counseling support, whether it was a person who needed shelter or needed resources for childcare. I now, approaching public service, had the opportunity to go and be a part of a platform where I could work proactively as opposed to reactively. That's how my brain works. And that's what makes most sense to me when you look at community work, and that at every single level, not just what we're talking about here tonight, but when it comes to attacking poverty in our community, being proactive with policies that will help you generate additional resources so that we can establish affordable housing options for families. Looking at the structure of how we deem, or what we deem as our natural resource, being tourism. Thinking outside the box and trying to figure out what else is it we can draw from naturally in our community by way of a resource, and create financial opportunities for the people who live here. Savannah not only is the tourist capital of this region, but we also have been highlighted as one of the top cities to retire to. Well, what does that translate to? It's looking at these proactive opportunities so that we can maximize and capitalize on an opportunity to now, let's prepare our citizens and our people so that they can have careers in geriatric care, not just jobs. And then we wouldn't have to worry about wages in that regard, because there are a myriad of professions within the area of geriatrics, if you will. So that's just my little soapbox. I got off a little bit, but listen, I'm so excited.
You can use it. You know, prevention goes beyond just, you know, what we're talking about here. It really is a mindset that I think can propel us.
And you need that type of mindset in every continuum, because we are such a reactionary community. Something happens and we react to it. We have to now be about the business of forecasting and planning. And, you know, I live by this adage that if you always do what you always do, you're going to always get what you always get. In addition, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Well, someone on council in the person of Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier said it best. If we focus on poverty reduction versus wealth building, we're going to
Yeah.
get poverty. You know? So it's just like, oh, like that's
It's a
like
mindset.
it's a mindset. It's a
One more
mindset.
thing. Oh, that gets again, it goes. So what she just said is so true because, you know, we don't want to think about poverty reduction. We want to think about building wealth. And I think that, you know, when you think about drug prevention, we're used to the 90s of like, don't do it, just say no. We're trying to teach more on, instead of focusing on what you don't want the kids to do, what do we want the kids to do? You know, so if we start thinking in that mindset of more of like, what are we building, an asset base, rather than, oh, well, we don't want these kids to, you know, start smoking marijuana and do bad in school. Well, what do we want? So it's just, it's a mindset switch, and I believe in the power of it, and I'm so happy that we can spread it
Yes.
and talk about it.
It's a mindset, it's a switch that goes off, and it is also a part of conditioning. And we can be conditioned to do things well, we can be conditioned to continue to do things the same way. But I am a believer that we are in a time where we are becoming conditioned to be more engaged. We are becoming conditioned to be empowered, to hold the powerful accountable. And we are becoming conditioned not to ask our elected servants what they should be. I'm doing away with that whole elected official. Don't call me an elected official. I'm an elected servant. I am hell bent on not becoming a politician, y'all, because this is just, but that's not what this show is about. But we are living in a time where people, our citizens, are more engaged, plugged in, and knowledgeable of municipal jargon and the inner workings of such. And it's because we have presented it in a way in which we have allowed people to be a part. Now, the next challenge is to be able to have policies accepted and adopted and manifested in our community so that they can see the evidence of the work where we are. Now, one of the things I was going to say to you and introduce to everybody, I sort of did a preview to it the other day on Sunday, I think it was, but we are now focused on Lindsey in every pocket of the community where I can. And I have a automatic base now. I was like, aha, um, I have direct access to many, many young men in our city who are going off to college and are in high school. And what better foundation, what better population demographic is there than this group? So men can stop rape. That's the primary way we can prevent it. It's like, no, you don't teach a woman how to protect herself through a self-defense class to stop rape. You don't tell a woman to be in before dark or not to walk to her car alone to stop rape. You don't say all of those things, because you know what? When we say that and we hear someone has been raped, the first, that's my Miss Robinson, she's one of my biggest cheerleaders. The first thing that we think of, we hinge on the notion of what that person was doing, what they were drinking, where they were, or what. That's the first thing that we ask when we learn of the violent act of rape. We ask that question because somehow in our mind, it makes us safer. It makes me safer. So if I don't go out at night by myself, if I decide to not take a jog at night with my headphones in my ear, I won't be raped. If I don't drink to the point of inebriation and get disconnected from my friends, I won't get raped. If I don't wear the short skirt and the plunging shirt, I won't get raped. No, that's quite the contrary. You won't get raped if nobody rapes you. Now, there is lots of statistics and data on the various types of rape. In addition, we focus a lot on stranger rape because it's the most scary. Oftentimes, it's also the most violent and horrific. But the majority of rape is actually committed by someone we know or who we are acquainted with, right? And when we look at where we are now, uh, a lot of our seniors are preparing to go off to school, and there will be offerings throughout the city of self-defense classes for our young girls. They'll warn you of all of the signs. They'll tell you that you're going to be considered fresh meat. They'll tell you not to drink out of an open punch bowl. They'll tell you all of these things. And it's all good information to know because you have to know what you're going to be faced with out there. But Lindsey, we are missing the mark.
Yeah.
When we as parents, as adults, as guardians of these young men and boys, we miss the mark when we don't pull them aside and tell them what the law is and tell them the importance of establishing consent. And it's not too far-fetched. We don't live in a society that's too far gone where we just simply ask them to abstain from sex, casual sexual situations with people who you don't have a relationship with. Now, some may say that's quite granola, Miss Carter. Did you do that? That's none of your business. But
I think talking about emotional, people don't talk about the emotional bond that is. Like, that's not something you do willy-nilly anyway. So just more conversation in general.
And it's a casual situations also puts us in greater responsibility when it comes to a lot of things. I'm dealing with something big now in my life, but it also brings you closer to that element of possibly being accused of an act where a signal or a cue was missed. Well, if you haven't had enough of an established relationship where you don't know whether or not that person consented or not, you don't know when this person is drunk or not, you don't know what the mental capacity of a person. If you're that irresponsible and you find yourself on that side of the law is the law. And we cannot be relegated to not knowing the law. Now, some people would say, well, that's not fair. Then we get into this whole notion of girls being fast and accusing boys of rape, and they just want to, be popular or be accepted. Well, I'll tell you this. When it comes to false accounts of rape, among all crimes that are reported falsely, rape ranks lowest. No one wants to be associated with an act of violence that vile if it really didn't happen. Now, have people made false reports? Yes. Do we relegate every rape situation and we should ask that question? That should be the threshold? No. Because, again, of all crimes that are reported falsely, rape ranks lowest. And so it's something that we want our parents of young boys in particular to take seriously. And when I say young boys, I want to also pause and acknowledge while 1 in 5 women are raped or sexually assaulted in her lifetime, 1 in 6 men also experience acts of sexual violence. There is help and support for men and boys too. There is a website, 1in6.org, the number 1, the word IN, and the number 6.org. You can get help and support confidentially via your cell phone or your computer. Additionally, there are local services in our community that provides very reputable support to victims of rape and child molestation, whether it was yesterday, last week, last month, last year, or 10 years ago. It's never too late to get the help and the support you need. Now, if you have my image, Men Can Stop Rape, you'll see this floating around, not just this month. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we are connecting with communities. We're connecting with organizations and entities throughout our city, throughout the county. You can email me via my city website, My email address is on the city website and my cell phone number. If you are interested in having me come and talk to a group of young men, athletes, or your son, to talk about how we can stop rape, how they can stop rape. Now, listen, Scott Holcomb, Representative Scott Holcomb is one of my favorite state representatives. He's a representative of District 81 in Atlanta. Representative Holcomb was responsible for the passage of the Compassionate Care Act, House Bill 304. And the Compassionate Care Act called for expedient processing or more expedient processing of rape kits. It was introduced and passed during a time of a nationwide backlog of rape kits. Georgia was egregiously offensive when it came to not processing rape kits, and so were we here in Savannah. I'm so happy now that we have our intrepid district attorney, who is Shalana Cook-Jones, who's taking these cases more seriously now. And we're hopeful that some of what she has discovered and uncovered will be taken care of at this point. But I'm really, really excited because Representative Scott Holcomb also has championed House Bill 255, which now provides a data tracking system for survivors. Mm-hmm. This is very important. So if a person submits and subjects her or his body to a very probative and invasive sexual assault exam for the collection of forensics evidence that goes into what's called a rape kit, and that DNA goes into what's known as a CODIS system. CODIS is Combined DNA Index System. Now, our survivors will be able to track when their kit will be tested, as well as get the results. This is very key because generally survivors are very gripped and paralyzed, one, by the act, but two, by the subsequent decisions and actions that take place afterwards. So Representative Scott Holcomb has committed to come and talk to us next week about his experience with that. I'm just so happy to have a man in the State House. And this is one of those other examples of how a man can stop rape. He can champion any other bill or any other legislation, but he has taken on the charge of advocating for survivors through policy initiatives. I can't tell you enough about how happy I am to call him my friend and to have him support Georgians throughout the state. So, Lindsey, you'll hear more from me. Now tell us how you can connect with our bar and liquor serving establishments. Tell them how to contact you and what it will be that you'll do when they contact you.
Yes. So you can go to our website, beyondthebellkids.org, press the contact button and contact Savannah. Else, you can email me, L. Grovenstein. Can they see my name, or do I need to spell it out?
Yes, please. I spell it wrong all the time.
It's a long last name. So LGROVENSTEIN for Beyond the Bell @gmail.com.
Okay, and for good measure, just put it in the chat before we leave, or when afterwards if you need to. So listen, what were you about to say?
I'll say just email me. We'll get you posters, but we're doing these posters. We want to create more posters, but in the end, we also want to create. Let me send that to you. In the end, we also want to create additional training that will be optional. So we want to have a sexual assault intervention training for employees. We want to do highlighter training. We want to help out the managers as well. We also need your help as business owners to help us plan this, because we don't want to just plan something and give it to you. We want you to be a part of this process. So if you are passionate, if you're interested in this, we want you to help us plan it, because we're going to need your help in that as well.
And speaking of planning, I want to mention a very, very important department. You mentioned them earlier, our ABC department. They will be pivotal in anything that we decide, because they've been on the front lines of this work for a long time. And I think the benefit of what we have today and what we are doing, your expertise, background, and knowledge, and I saw where Representative Hall acknowledged my background and experience, and for whatever reason, I'm here utilizing this platform. We're grateful for that. Yes, certainly disappointed that it could not have been in those other areas, but we're going to just continue to run on and attack the work as the Lord sees fit in terms of where we are in this time in our community. So I'm encouraged. I am encouraged, and I think it's something quite special that we have created and done here in Savannah, whereby we have uniquely blended awareness prevention activity for prevention of underage drinking, of prevention of drunk driving, as well as incorporating those measures to help us avert sexual violence. So, Lindsey, I am so convinced that what we have done here could essentially be established as a best practice that we can use not only here in Savannah, throughout the state, and possibly the nation. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
I agree. We could push it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Yes. So again, Men Can Stop Rape. We want to connect with pastors. We want to connect with athletic teams. We will be seeking to connect with summer camps and youth groups all over the city. Give us a call and we will come out. And when we talk about men stopping rape and talking to young boys and young men, it's not about fear tactics. It's not about fear tactics. We present this information and this education in a way in which we help them understand that all of them have a mom. Some of them have sisters, grandmothers, aunties. They have women in their lives who they love. And we just want to help grow a community of men who will be ambassadors for this work. And guess what? It's enough to go around. It's enough to go around. So let's do this, Savannah. Let's do this, Savannah. And what you can do if you are listening to my voice tonight, if you have a young man, a young boy, a teenager, one in college, athlete, going to college, getting ready to graduate from college, we want you to share some nuggets with them. Primarily, we want you to share with them the fact that you have to establish consent and the benefit of engaging and establishing meaningful relationships before engaging in sexual encounters. So thank you so much, Savannah. Thank you so much, Lindsey. And make sure you put in there Beyond the Veil website as well. Thank you. Good night, Savannah.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.